Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode here at the Damage Report, the second day of the best week of our lives, everybody. Isn't it a great time to be alive? We do have one good thing going for us, though, and that is that today we've been lucky enough to snag the one, the only, the Emma Vigeland. Emma, how's it going?
It's going well. I had some peanuts before I came on air because I was very hungry, and rumor has it you're really hungry too, John.
I am incredibly hungry. I was thinking about Chinese food. I understand it's really early in the morning, but that sounds good to me. And I think in 2020, just do whatever you want.
Right.
The Senate Republicans are gonna. Why shouldn't we? So
yeah, literally everything that possibly can go wrong is currently going wrong. Even things I love, can't have them. Can't have sports. Can't have fantasy football. Can't have Saquon Barkley, whatever, tearing his ACL. Can't have the Supreme Court justice that I love still living. All those things sucks. Everything sucks. But let's have a great show.
We probably won't have that either because everything sucks. But yeah, and I was telling you before that they canceled the Dark Crystal. It's like, what is up with Netflix, man? It's like, that was amazing. God. And I'm sure it's because not enough people watched it.
Other shows. They have a million other shows. What's one more?
I don't care. I want that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I blame everyone who didn't watch it. I blame you in the audience right now for not watching that. And now I don't have any puppets. We can't have puppets. You know how nice it would be to have puppets right now, considering everything that's going on? So I guess at some point I will stop talking about puppets and transition to talking about the things that are going on. But before I do that, for those of you who are currently watching perhaps live on Twitch or wherever, YouTube, feel free to hit the like button, share the stream, let people know that we're live, because we've got a big show. We also have a big special, a Get Out the Vote special that we're going to be doing later on today, I believe starting at 4:30 Pacific time. Hold on. Yes, watch Tuesdays, 7:30 p.m. Pacific time, 4:30 p.m. Eastern time on 2it.com/live, YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, Roku, and other platforms that don't yet exist but will be announced and come out before that time. Myself and Cenk Uygur, Ida Rodriguez, Benjamin Dixon are going to be debunking myths around voting, giving you information about your rights as a voter, walking you through some of the deadlines and things you need to know to make sure that you vote, because I don't know if you know this, voting's important. Perhaps now more than ever. So we're going to be talking about that. Definitely tune in later for that one. Emma, you going to be voting? What do you think about voting? You think it's important?
I might get around to it. I'm not sure. But maybe I'll learn some insightful information about what voting even is. Can you give me the dictionary definition of voting? How do you spell it? VAUHTING?
Is that a boys joke?
No, anyway, I spelled it kind of Vince Vaughn-esque, and it just came to me.
Oh, yes. Don't listen to Vince Vaughn for any information about voting. That would be a bad idea.
Don't.
I'm just gonna guess it would be a bad idea.
I think he's a libertarian. I think he's a lone Hollywood conservative. But doesn't mean he's not a very compelling actor.
Yes, in some things.
I like him.
I like him too, but. You know what? Okay, fine. We'll put him in the Dark Crystal, then we can bring him back. Get that star power that we need. Anyway, okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about some news. We're also going to be responding to your tweets and comments and all of that. So feel free to send those flooding in. I could use them. Emma probably can use them too. She's mostly human, and we need the support. So anyway, with that, why don't we talk some of the big news of the morning. There were two Republicans on record saying no new Supreme Court justice should be pushed through before the election, Lisa Murkowski and Susan Collins. And there was a third possibility, Mitt Romney. Isn't he reasonable these days? Hasn't he occasionally gone against Trump? And so we're just waiting to find out. Oh, no. He says, I intend to follow the Constitution and precedent in considering the president's nominee. If the nominee reaches the Senate floor, I intend to vote based upon their qualifications. Oh, so he's just the same as all the rest. That was fun, thinking that maybe he would do something different. It wouldn't even be enough, by the way. Even if he had gone against it with Murkowski and Collins, it wouldn't be enough. But what do you know? Mitt Romney's going to do what Republicans are going to do, Emma.
Yeah, but he marched in a Black Lives Matter rally, so we should give him kudos. I don't know. I mean, I shouldn't be so sarcastic about it. That was important and interesting, and like a good step forward for the Republican Party in its own respect. But this is just another stark reminder Mitt Romney came out in the primary and talked about how Donald Trump can't be the nominee. He's horrible. He's bigoted. He's racist. He's cruel. All of these things. And then, what do you know? He goes simping for Trump and shows up. And there's
how long have you been waiting? Anyway,
I've just been using the word simping a lot recently, and I kind of love it. And
did you actually know that Ted Cruz's beard style is the simp? That's actually what that's called.
Well, it should be called that because that's exactly what he is. But yeah, we all knew that Mitt Romney wanted that, I think it was Secretary of State position at the time. And he came and he bent the knee and he said, Trump, my dear leader, I will follow you to the ends of the earth, even though I said these horrible things about you and ostensibly care about morals and all of that. So that isn't going to be the case now. Wait, I thought I lost myself, so I lost my train of thought. Never mind. I'm like blinking in and out. Can you guys still see me?
Yeah, no, you were solid all the way through.
All right, please cut that out.
Okay, no, we're gonna leave it in. But anyway, yeah, look, and he has gone against him sometimes during impeachment or whatever, which totally ended up mattering. I mean, that's why all this damage has stopped being done to the country. But no, on this, it's too important. It's too important. You know why? Because it doesn't matter what they've said in the past or the supposed principles or standards they expressed in the past. They want it. They want as many. They want 9 conservative justices. They want 50 conservative justices if they can have it. And so they're going to have it. Doesn't matter. And nothing matters in comparison to that because of how long it will last. Whoever they end up ramming through on there is going to be on the court for 30 to 45 years. They're not going to, like, on Twitter, it was trending again that Lindsey Graham had spoken in the opposite way a few years ago. Yeah, good. We pointed out. Of course, you should point it out, and then you should move on because it doesn't matter. It's a cautionary tale, and it should be a cautionary tale that leads to a lesson for Democrats. But as you're going to see in a little bit, it's probably not going to. But anyway, I want to play you one bit of what Mitt Romney said this morning about the battle over the court. Take a look at this.
So I recognize that we may have a court which has more of a conservative bent than it's had over the last few decades. But my liberal friends have, over many decades, gotten very used to the idea of having a liberal court. And that's not written in the stars. And I know that a lot of people are saying, gosh, we don't want that change. I understand the energy associated with that perspective. But it's also appropriate for a nation which is, if you will, center-right, to have a court which reflects center-right points of view.
Okay, so I left in that last little bit that a lot of people have been cutting off because, first of all, Emma, it's just a center-right country, according to our politicians and our media, and it doesn't matter what happens or what changes or what policies they support. It is always going to be a center-right country, whatever that needs to mean. It can mean anything they want, but it definitely isn't to the left. No matter what, on any topic, it's center-right.
It's infuriating. Just because Congress is center-right and because what is left of the Democratic Party and its leftism is center-right doesn't mean the country is on that playing field. You just ask anybody, what do they think about legalization of marijuana? Oh, 2/3 of the country supports it. And yet the official Democratic position now that Kamala Harris is putting out there and Chuck Schumer is just decriminalization. So they're center-right. The country isn't. Medicare for all, a Green New Deal, all of these social issues. The country is certainly to the left, but as long as you repeat it over and over again, it must be true. And also the idea that the court has been liberal for the past years. Mm-hmm. Do we remember Bush v. Gore? Do we remember? That was as obvious of an indicator about the court's political leanings as anything. And they quite clearly made their decision to stop the Florida recount and hand the presidency to George W. Bush. And it's been that way since then, a conservative court. It really has. Save for some specific social issues, the court has always sided with corporations against workers fairly consistently for the past few decades. So it's just a ridiculous claim.
Yeah, no, it's a liberal Citizens United decision, a liberal shredding of the Voting Rights Act. all of that. No, and this is the exact same thing as saying this is a center-right country. It is redefining what every single word means. If you believe that the court was liberal over the past 30 years, that's insanity, but they have to pitch it. He's not going to go as far as every other Republican will say that they're crazy Marxist or whatever, like, Sotomayor is an insane communist or something, but he's still pushing in that direction. That's what the intent of this is. And to the extent that the country has had sort of whatever kind of expectation that the court should be in that direction over the last few decades, perhaps it has something to do with the fact that, as we've pointed out on these issues, that's where America is. America doesn't want abortion to be outlawed, but that's what they're going to get with this new Supreme Court justice. And maybe, like an amazing stat that a lot of people have pointed out, during the entire life of Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the Republican Party has won the popular vote in a presidential election one time during a war that we know cows people into supporting the status quo. Maybe that has something to do with their expectations for the Supreme Court, that the Republicans who can't win nationally and haven't been able to for freaking decades, maybe shouldn't have a super majority on the Supreme Court. Maybe there's a bit of a gap there, okay? And it's not just in terms of language. But anyway, that's Mitt Romney. Mitt Romney's going to do what Mitt Romney's going to do, because at the end of the day, while he might not like Donald Trump, he's a conservative Republican, and he wants conservative Republicans to have as much political power as they possibly can. Now, we're supposed to fight back against all of this, their moves on the Supreme Court, with our Democratic leadership. And so let's take a look at what this Democratic leadership is. So here's a little bit of Chuck Schumer.
Why even bother constructing a pretense for your position? Why say it's this rule or that rule, and then do the exact opposite when it suits your interests? Why not just come to the floor and say, I'm going to do what's ever best for my political party? Consistency be damned, reason be damned, democracy be damned. Just admit it. There's no shaping the cravenness of this position. If a Senate majority over the course of 6 years steals 2 Supreme Court seats using completely contradictory rationales, how could we expect to trust the other side again? How can we trust each other if, when push comes to shove, when the stakes are the highest, the other side will double-cross their own standards when it's politically advantageous?
Okay, so there's 2 sections of that video. We're going to eventually get to both of them. But the second one right there was, if they steal 2 Supreme Court seats, how could we trust them in the future? Why are you talking about the future? Why do you trust them now? Why apparently did you trust them yesterday and last week and the month before that? Why, after all of this, would Chuck Schumer, the leader of the Democrats in the Senate, why would he doesn't know what year it is. He doesn't know what decade it is. He's still sort of waking up a little bit about the state of the Republican Party and how power equals power and all of that, Emma.
Yeah, it's insane. It started off pretty good, right? Talking about the cravenness of the position. But then he started to say, how could we ever trust you again? You trusted them before? You trusted them before. The Republican Party. You trusted them before with a guy like Ted Cruz on the other side of the aisle. That's the people who literally play dirty whenever they get the chance. Mitch McConnell banks on Democrats caving and having a little bit of humanity for all of his negotiations with them every time. And he'll hold people's livelihoods and lives and their health care and their immigration status and things that affect people, millions. They'll hold that over Democrats' heads in order to get more tax cuts for the rich, corporations, bailouts, etc. He does that every single time. Why would you think it would be different this time around? They play hardball every single time. And yeah, as you pointed out, John, he's talking about the future. In Roll Call reported a statement to other Democratic leaders and members of the caucus. He said he was talking about next year. Oh, we'll do everything in our power next year to hold them to this and go after them and retaliate, and then nothing will be off the table next year. Why are you already seeding that they'll be able to do this? You have a number of procedural things that you could actually do, but they don't want to go down that road They never, ever want to use the tactics that Republicans repeatedly use against them.
And that he, as you pointed out, he starts by saying he goes through all of those. That's why I left it in, because if you are going to be spurred by the way the Republican Party has evolved over time into doing what's necessary to defeat them, then good. I want to hear all of that. What he said right there is, you know, sort of a weak, tired, sleepy version of what we said on the show yesterday. But if you're not going to do anything, then screw you for uttering even one of those syllables, because now you're just wasting my time. So now you apparently do acknowledge that they have no standards. They don't care about lying, decency, the norms, blah, blah, every single one of those things. And so how can we trust them? I'm going to be really mad in 2021. No, there's no point in you learning the lesson if that's what you take away from having learned that lesson, Chuck Schumer. And maybe he'll do something. Maybe if we push him hard enough, he'll do something, expanding the core, statehood, whatever, maybe. But he's only going to do that if we push him a hell of a lot harder than we are now. And I would say whether he does it or not, he needs to get out of that spot, because he's taken up a spot in the Senate, and he's certainly taken up a big spot in Senate leadership that he has never deserved, ever, and certainly doesn't now, considering what we're facing. AOC should take him down if there's any chance of her taking him down. The issue is, as Emma pointed out, they were already looking forward to someday something's going to happen. It's not just him. Nancy Pelosi tweeted this: Republicans are rushing to get someone on the Supreme Court because they want to obliterate the Affordable Care Act. Mark my words, they will pay for elections to come. No, I don't care about them paying in the future. If they're going to pay in the future, they're going to pay in the future for having done it. What you're saying is effectively, it's the herd immunity thing. It's, we're not going to do anything, and we're just going to see what happens. We're just going to see what happens. No, what are you going to do? We had the leader of the Dems in the Senate, the leader of the Dems in the House, and both of them appear to be saying, someday, if they do this, then surely people will get mad and they will vote for Democrats, because that's been the solution to all of our problems. There's not any sort of structural impediments or obstacles to the popular vote actually being translated into political power in a million different ways. And yet the two most powerful Dems in DC still believe that that will save us, or they believe that that will placate us and get us to just go along with this.
Yeah, well, exactly. I mean, they only care about accumulating power. If you actually cared about the substantive reasons why a conservative Supreme Court would be so horrible, take the ACA, for example. Joe Biden has promised to strengthen the ACA. It's the most measly, ridiculously small promise, but that's what he's said he's going to do on healthcare, right? Mm-hmm. Trump gets his nominee through. That's impossible. That's impossible. They're already going to gut it. It's in the lower courts right now, and it's going to be appealed. So all the small things that they're promising from a policy perspective on the Democratic side, the conservative things they're promising, won't be possible if Trump gets this nominee through. That's just the reality. We want Medicare for all down the line. Well, if the court is completely conservative for decades and decades, that's going to be a massive problem. But when you're not focused on the policy effects and you're only focused on winning electorally and accumulating power, which will eventually shift back to the Republicans and eventually shift to you because Democrats are so bad at making their case, then this is the result you get. You get people like Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and their leadership. And additionally, they are in that position not because they're good negotiators and they actually win for their side. They're in that position because they're good fundraisers. It's the same reason that Hakeem Jeffries won his leadership position and took Joe Crowley's old position. He's from a close-by district in New York, and it's a reason that Barbara Lee isn't in leadership, because she doesn't play that game. It's all about who can be the best fundraisers. But that doesn't help when we actually have to negotiate with for policy. In fact, it hurts us because they're so worried about corporate donors. And that's the reality of Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi's leadership.
100%. And like, it would be one thing, maybe, at least in terms of winning elections, if they could translate that fundraising into winning elections. But the best they can come up with is hiring consultants and making ads, and they make the worst possible ads imaginable. like teenagers on Twitter produce harder hitting ads than all of the consultants combined. So it is just taking money, handing it out to people that you conveniently know and have worked with for a very long time, so they get enriched, and then just going along. And whether you win elections or whether you lose elections, you basically have like a 90% chance of keeping your seat no matter what, which is a nice position if you can get it, I guess. Unfortunately, the vast majority of Americans don't have those positions, and so we are currently suffering. Let me read you one more quote from Nancy Pelosi, and I want you to take from this whether she gets it or not. On Sunday morning, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi demurred when asked whether a Democratic majority would consider expanding the court as reprisal for a late-term Trump appointment. Quote, "Let's just win the election. Let's hope that the president will see the light." What are you talking about? See the light. He has as good of a chance as that as someone who just had like tire irons jabbed through their eyes. He's not going to see the light. He doesn't care. He's doing what will benefit him, and his base 100% supports it. They'll see the light. She's the leader. She is the leader, and she's basically just saying, well, let's see if he all of a sudden is a fundamentally different person than he's been for 7.5 decades. Let's see, and let's see if he'll stop engaging in behaviors that have benefited him 99 times out of 100 in every situation in his life. Let's see if maybe he'll change for some reason that I can't even define and don't even bother to try.
Fingers crossed, maybe. I mean, that was a horrific appearance on ABC on Sunday. She also had some sort of glitch, beep boop, good morning, Sunday morning. It was embarrassing. Yeah, I mean, I almost feel bad making fun of her because it might have been a senior moment. I don't really know, but yeah, that was tough.
I mean, if you could just get a random elected Democrat into both of those seats, it would have to be better, right?
Yes.
I mean, it can't be much worse. Maybe Manchin. I don't know. Here's one that I probably wouldn't want replacing Chuck Schumer, and that is Dianne Feinstein, who was asked about ending the filibuster or expanding the SCOTUS. You know, any of these consequences that Democratic leadership are saying, well, I mean, I guess you'll get the seat, but we'll get you on the next one. So all of those, she says, I don't believe in doing that. I think the filibuster serves a purpose. It is not often used. It's often less used now than when I first came. And I think it's part of the Senate that differentiates itself. Okay, so let's bring up a little chart of filibusters. And yeah, so she came at that third from the left line. She said it's used less now. It is just assumed that any legislation you don't want is an automatic filibuster, and not even one of those cool old school TCM cinematic filibusters where you have to actually make a spectacle of it. It's just assumed, and then we proceed. Oh, you don't have 60 votes for something to benefit, the poor and working class? No, we're just going to move on. But Dianne Feinstein says that chart, it's the exact opposite of it. Flip that upside down. Come on. It's a great tradition. It's a great norm. I know it's not written down anywhere, but I like it. And I like my norms better than I like political power. That's what she has to say. And now I want to give you an easy take. How easy this is to do. Ed Markey. Mitch McConnell set the precedent. No Supreme Court vacancies filled in an election year. If he violates it when Democrats control the Senate in the next Congress, we must abolish the filibuster and expand the Supreme Court.
That's what you have to do. It's the only option you've got right now. And Feinstein's still like, I don't know, I'm going to play dumb about filibusters. And maybe I was hanging upside down on monkey bars when I first saw the chart and I thought it was the opposite way. That's the only explanation for it, actually. The real explanation is, once again, we're talking about high-profile Democrats who are not high-profile for any reason except for their seniority. I'm not talking about age, but the amount of time that they've been in the Senate, in Congress, in power, and also their fundraising capabilities. That's it. And the difference, there's such a difference between the way right-wingers garner power. Obviously, Mitch McConnell's a big fundraiser as well, but the reason he's still so powerful is because he gets results for their party. What do the high-profile Democrats in the Senate and Nancy Pelosi in the House, what results have they gotten? What? Tell me. Why are they still in power if they can't do anything legislatively? I get it. It's the fundraising. Regular voters don't care about that. Imagine standing for Nancy Pelosi and Dianne Feinstein and Chuck Schumer and people like that. They literally don't achieve anything, and they're just faces for uselessness.
Yeah, I mean, I guess at least Chuck Schumer hasn't been in control. He's still awful in every way, but Nancy Pelosi has had control for 2 years now. What has she done with it? What has she done with it? And I understand you can't necessarily pass any legislation you want if the Republicans control the Senate and all of that. But what have you done?
Impeachment.
What have you done? Remember all those
impeachment? But that doesn't affect any regular person's life ever.
Again, because of the Senate. Yeah.
Exactly. But has she pushed through a substantive legislative priority? What has she prioritized legislatively in the House?
I don't know.
Can't say anything.
In the military budget.
Yep.
Yeah, and you got to love this democracy. You set it up so that there will always be one chamber that 50 to 75 white people in one state will get the same amount of political representation as a state with an economy 4th largest in the world, and then make everything contingent on that. So the Supreme Court is based on that, not on the House. If he gets impeached, they can just protect him. Okay. Just getting mad. So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna read a few comments, and then we're gonna get into other topics that are probably gonna piss me off even more. So here we go. First out the gate in the super chats today, Jason R says, so in light of RBG's death and Breyer being over 80, how's that protest vote against Hillary tasting in the mouths of self-righteous lefties? I get what you're saying. Not necessarily the most productive super chat, but thank you. And yeah, if Trump wins re-election, he's going to get another seat probably. There's a very good chance. And not just that Breyer is hypothetically obviously really up there and might die or might retire. Obviously, that's incredibly sad. But they have 270 plus conservatives that in theory could step down. And then, I mean, what a sham
I'm all for
this will be.
I'm all for unproductive, bitter super chats because I'm that kind of person. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
I hopefully we're testing the theory that I heard so much on the left that if Trump won, the left would galvanize and become way stronger. And then the nominee in 2020 would take Trump down and he would be a barn burning leftist Joe Biden.
I mean, that would have been great. Bit risky, as was pointed out in 2016. And I remember in particular talking about the future of the Supreme Court in 2016. I wonder if we were onto something. I wonder if we were onto something. Jason R says, I'd prefer to try to drag Biden left protesting than trying to drag Trump to human decency from an unmarked van with a bag over my head. Yeah.
Good analogy. Yeah.
Zane, thank you for the super chat, but I know that you're just sending them for me. I'm not going to read it, but thank you for the super chat. Curly says, John, did you hear about the QAnon movement taking over in Germany? That'll probably end up good. That'll be good. That's what they need in Germany. Let's see. Dragon Squad First Class says, Dragon Squad patches, please. Hashtag TYT Army. That would be great. Let's make that happen. Das Boys Fleisch says, my guess is the producers like Emma because she finished perfectly on time 2 weeks ago.
I did. I actually
Did you?
didn't. I finished 5 minutes early. And then I talked about football for 5 minutes with Michael.
Oh, I did see that. Rob Shively says, yes, unleash the Vig rage. Nice. And Kai Allen says, yay, Emma, seeing you on TDR lifts my spirits as always. John, thanks for your honest, passionate fury yesterday. I feel the exact same way. We all do.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna read more super chats in a little bit. Thank you, Gina. I appreciate that. Over on Twitch, C-Dubs, thank you for gifting a tier 1 sub. Appreciate that. John's Venn Diagram of Desire says, hey, fellow Dragon Squad members, love to see more of Dragon Squad on Twitch. Crazy Hawaiian in PA says, yay, it's the Vig. Aloha, Emma. And John too.
Aloha.
Oh, that reminds me, because Osborne says really wanted to join the movie night, but Inception isn't available in my country at the moment. Own it on Blu-ray, but as it was around 2 a.m., instead of setting it up, I decided to call night. Was Inception the movie you did the movie night for?
I did, yeah.
How'd it go?
It was good. I mean, the movie. I've decided the concept is kind of stupid, but like it's totally sold by amazing visuals and great actors who like sell like Leo DiCaprio and Tom Hardy talking about a dream within a dream. I mean, now I've seen that South Park episode where they make fun of it. It's like a dream within a taco, within a, you know, within a Popeyes or whatever. Yeah, I forget exactly, but that's all I kept thinking about. But then I just kept thinking, God, Tom Hardy's good. Like, and
Joseph Gordon-Levitt was good.
Sorry?
Joseph Gordon-Levitt was pretty good in that too.
Joseph Gordon-Levitt, but he's not the MVP of the movie. I mean, Leo's great, but who I forget is such a good actor is Cillian Murphy. He's really, really complex and good in that movie as like the tortured little.
Good.
He's good.
That's true. Tom Hardy was very good too.
Maybe I just think he's cute and like I can't tell up from down when looking at his acting.
I have that problem too sometimes. Yeah, maybe. I will say I don't know that there's ever been a movie that had as big of a change in my evaluation from the first time I watched it to the second time I watched it. In movie theaters, man, I love that movie. It was like, it's like The Matrix again. Yeah. And then the second time I was like, what did I like about this? It's amazing visuals and everything, but like I need to see it a third time. It's been a few years. I'll see it a third time.
I did forget some of the twists. I was surprised by them. And I will say what also affected it was how bad Interstellar was and stupid Interstellar was. And I kept just thinking like that Nolan like thinks he's so smart and like it's annoying me when which Inception's a way better movie than Interstellar, but Interstellar was so bad and stupid. Love is the fifth dimension. Oh wow.
Oh God.
Sucks.
Man, that movie ending makes me appreciate 2001: A Space Odyssey's ending.
Yeah.
That comment is for Bart. Oh. Anyway, and by the way, people are saying that Tom Hardy is going to be the next Bond. I don't know about that. I love Daniel Craig. Anyway, okay, so we are way over. So we're gonna proceed through some more news. I'm gonna try not to dwell in anger and move through at a little bit of a faster pace, but we're gonna see what happens as we move on to this next topic. Donald Trump has continued his nationwide super spreader tour, getting all of his most devoted servants in rooms so that they can infect each other with a fatal illness, while he regales them with commentary about the pandemic like this.
Oh, the disease, we didn't know it. Now we know it. It affects elderly people with heart problems and other problems. If they have other problems, that's what it really affects. That's it. You know, in some states, thousands of people, nobody young, below the age of 18, like nobody. They have a strong immune system. Who knows? You take your hat off to the young because they have a hell of an immune system, but it affects virtually nobody. It's an amazing.
It affects virtually nobody. It affects virtually nobody. Let's take a look at a recent headline because I expected that if it affects virtually nobody, I would Google and I would see that it killed like 20 people or something like that. But it turns out no, it's killed more than 200,000 people. Killed a family member of mine. Can't even tell you how many millions of people have had it. I mean, how many millions of people thankfully survive the extended stays in hospitals and now have a lifetime of organ damage to deal with. That's going to be great. And there's apparently some neurological issues that it causes too. That's going to be fun for the rest of a lot of people's lives. But it affects virtually nobody. Virtually nobody. And his crowd cheers. Doesn't matter that he's failed worse on this than any president in our lifetime has failed on any challenge in our lifetime. They will cheer as he mocks the idea that people have been affected by this.
Well, it really just takes a special kind of person in not the right way, in not a good way, to speak about people, 200,000 people who've died, and he knows the figure, but it just doesn't like emotionally register with him to speak about people like that in that callous way. He can't understand what it means to lose someone that he cares about in that way, and it be a direct result of public policy. He's grown up incredibly rich and entitled and immune from a lot of the consequences of public policy for his entire life. And so it doesn't register with someone with that kind of a personality disorder and with someone who is so privileged and cannot see outside their own perspective. It's jarring. And it's jarring to see people who did not have that upbringing respond to it. It's very enraging.
Yeah. It is. And, like I tweeted about how it had affected me. And a lot of people responded. There were photos that people tweeted in response through glass because they had to say goodbye to a loved one who was dying and they couldn't even be near them. A lot of people can't even get into hospitals. I'm not even going to say, but yeah, my family member that died, his wife couldn't see him for the weeks that he spent in the hospital, and he died. Couldn't see him for weeks. That's how horrendous this pandemic is. Doesn't affect virtually anybody. And he seemed to get that, by the way, with a little Freudian slip in his commentary. He said, if you recall, in some states, thousands of people and no young. Thousands of people what? Thousands of people what and no young? What happened to those thousands of people? We know what you were going to say. Thousands of people died and no young. But it affects virtually nobody, except perhaps those thousands of people. The 10 to 15,000 people in Florida and in California and in Texas, whole communities dead, stadiums packed with corpses. It affects virtually nobody. And the election is still kind of maybe a toss-up. That this guy not only gets to fail, not only leaves, a trail of death in his wake, the domestic likes of which we haven't seen. Obviously, we've had presidents who have gone abroad and killed hundreds of thousands of people. And America generally cares very little about that. But we don't even care when the bodies are piled up here. We're inoculated against caring about any consequence. His base loves him as much, if not more, than they did before the pandemic. Even though they know what he really thinks. He says there yesterday or 2 days ago, it doesn't affect the young. Told Bob Woodward in March, now it's turning out it's not just old people, Bob. But just today and yesterday, some startling facts came out. It's not just older. He said that months ago. But what's the difference? That's inconvenient. Forget it. Set it to the side. It's whatever I want it to be now. Even if Trump told me the exact opposite, it's more convenient. It's more comfortable to pretend that it's only old people. That strategy, by the way, of going out on the campaign trail and saying, this thing I've surrendered to just kills old people, isn't really hurting him in the polls. Fascinating democracy we have. Great society we have here in America.
What do we do when material conditions, mass death, an unemployment crisis, a new depression economically? What do we do when that doesn't register with a massive proportion of our population as connected to the leadership and the political consequences of voting for someone in this country? What do we do? That's why he's leaning into culture war stuff, because he's cynically banking on the fact that the Democrats have refused to make their own case and that policy has not been driven home for people. They can't see the connection between who is leading the country and what's happening to them economically and with COVID-19. I'm not saying that that's a majority of the country, but it could be close to half. And that's what scares me about this election, is that the cynicism, the breakdown of our democracy has been so thorough that people can't see straight anymore. The water has been too muddied. They can't see partly because Democrats don't make their own case, but partly because we've corrupted the entire system. And someone like Trump has muddied the waters effectively enough and blown everything up enough that what do you do when facts don't matter, the differences can't be delineated, and it's too murky for regular people to see? I don't know. I mean,
I guess you do the exact same thing that. No, continue.
Sorry, just quickly. I've had conversations with people who are kind of apolitical, like don't pay a ton of attention, and they're like, "Well, what could he have done differently? I mean, what are you going to do? It's a pandemic." Like that's a regular thing for people that don't pay attention to politics.
Yeah, and then that crowd, that massive crowd of people jammed in there without masks, except the people directly behind Trump that are forced to. Like, think about if you're in that crowd and you look at Trump, and past Trump, you see that they have forced the people behind him to put on masks what is all of that, all the signals that that's sending? The fact that they supposedly give masks to everyone in there, but don't actually ask them to put them on. All of this. Yeah, we are a failed state in so many ways. We are a broken people in so many ways. And a lot of the ways that we're broken are not new. You know, they just haven't been as directly activated on a daily basis by, you know, a president like Donald Trump. We do exactly what we would do if none of these things were true, but it's much, much harder to sustain. Yeah, and you know, like I say a lot, I said something to this effect yesterday with Francesca. You know, like, yeah, I'm gonna keep it real. There is a countdown on how long I can continue doing this, and the thing that makes it not tick faster is people like Emma being involved in this, because it's too much to do if you're alone. And when you're facing enemies on literally all sides and you're being stabbed in the back as you're being stabbed in the chest, yeah, you need to collect the right people. And so thank you, Emma, for making this slightly more tolerable.
Well, you know, John, I feel the exact same way about you. So, but right, our mental health, we're killing it right now in this pandemic. Yeah. No, I just mean it. I know everyone's mental health is really struggling, but it is hard to consume the news on this frequency. And yeah, I feel you, John. I totally do.
Yeah. Okay, let's read just a couple of comments before we move on. More pandemic news. Carol Funk sent in a super chat saying, please, John, shout out for our 6 comrades arrested in Denver, Colorado last weekend. Bogus extreme federal charges against community and protest leaders. Well, Carol, we actually, so yes, a shout out to them, and we do have a story sort of in that vein. Larry Lucas, thank you for your thank you. Lonely Soul says, does Emma have a pet? If so, can we have a pet sighting?
I do have a pet. Well, my family does, and his name's Riley. He's a pit bull boxer lab mix, and he's not here right now, so we can't have a sighting. Plus, I would have, you know, had to leave the room, go get him. Not good for the programming, I would say.
Probably not.
Yeah.
Dina sent in a super chat just saying term limits. Yeah, I'm more in favor of that than I used to be. I'm changing on a lot of things because they're forcing me to. I didn't used to support, you know, expanding the court, but you know, I used to thought we had democracy. Rob Shively says, sorry, John, the Vig is now my favorite because her movie opinions are better than yours.
We agreed on everything. We agreed on everything.
You agreed in a better way.
Right. Well.
Yeah.
Well, my movie opinion unreal. They're actually all correct.
Yeah, I'm sure. Okay, so let's talk about this a little bit more on the pandemic before we move to other news. Over the past few months, the CDC, basically any medical arm of the federal government, has increasingly, apparently, been brought under the more direct political control of the White House. And we have a great example of that over the past few days. So the CDC, for instance, had posted information on Friday stating that the COVID-19 can transmit over a distance beyond 6 feet, suggesting that indoor ventilation is key to protecting against a virus that has now killed nearly 200,000. You know, we got to catch up for the last couple of days. It's now more than 200,000. That's how bad this is. Where the agency previously warned that the virus mostly spreads through large drops encountered at close range, on Friday it had said, quote, small particles such as those in aerosols were a common vector. That was what they had posted. It didn't last long, with Jay Butler, the CDC's deputy director for infectious disease, saying in a Friday update that it was posted in error. Quote, unfortunately, an early draft of a revision went up without any technical review. The edited webpage has removed all references to airborne spread, except for a disclaimer that recommendations based on this mode of transmission are under review, with Butler continuing to say, we are returning to the earlier version and revisiting that process. It was a failure of process at CDC. Okay, so I get that. You know, sometimes we had a technical problem at the beginning of the show yesterday. So it was a technical problem. Generally, though, medical position papers aren't written as a technical problem.
Yes.
Can it transmit more than 6 feet, or can't it? Because apparently you've written up a document stating that it can. It seems like maybe it was posted publicly as a technical error, but what went into the actual writing of it? What is the state of the spread of COVID-19, and why was it brought up and then immediately taken down? Is it accurate or is it not?
Well, that's the part of the problem that is so bad about the politicization of a crisis response to a pandemic that Trump has thoroughly infected. They have done studies now. If there were to be a vaccine that comes out before Election Day, over half the country, I believe, said that an overwhelming majority, if I'm remembering the numbers correctly, said that they would not feel comfortable taking it. Definitely a majority. And they've done studies further about a vaccine in general, and a lot of people have cited the politicization of the process as brought about by Trump as rushing it and making it connected to Election Day, as having completely shaken their faith in the validity of a vaccine. And that's why his leadership in this pandemic, lack of leadership, is so dangerous, because things that should be normal government proceedings and vetting processes, like what the CDC normally does, they're all cast into doubt, and people don't believe what they're hearing from government agencies. It makes things really dangerous moving forward when you can't have government function on its most basic level in the middle of a crisis, because the president and the party, the Republican Party, has so shaken the faith in just very simple things.
100%. And that's the biggest issue. So I'm assuming at some point we'll understand what actually is going on in this area. I hope. Is it being held for a little bit longer before the election to justify Trump's continued rallies and his lack of advice, for states to comply with this, him continuing to advocate, as he has been up until yesterday, for schools to reopen? Are you sure that that's not what it is? Yeah, I don't know. And I mean, the fact that they cut back on testing, and we have this story about money for the military that was supposed to go towards that being taken away, and taking more centralized control over the reporting of these numbers. I don't know exactly how far the political control over the spread of scientific information has gone. And that's sort of the problem. I don't know that we can know. That's what makes me worried. The information we're getting is horrifying, but God only knows what they're hiding. And we'll see if anything's done about it. I mean, if we can skip ahead, Brian Schatz tweeted the CDC just published scientifically valid information and then pulled it off their website, and this is very likely a scandal. Okay, but is it? Or RBG died that day, so I guess we don't care about it anymore. The ICE detention hysterectomies, I guess we don't care. What does it take for a scandal to actually matter? All of these things would have been massive stories just a handful of years ago, but now it just seems like the solution to anything they're caught having done is to just do something terrible, and then 3 days later do something terrible again.
I don't really have anything to add to that, John, because we're just inundated with it. It's just, we're up to our ears in it, and there's no way to see straight. I mean, regular people we can't see straight in the goddamn news. Regular people can't see straight, and that makes it really terrifying. It means actions have zero consequences. Yeah,
not even the shallow surface consequences. When that story came out about the hysterectomies, that was news for a couple of days, which is miraculous in 2020 that a story can break through for a couple of days. And a lot of our elected officials said, that they were horrified by this. Did Republicans need to even pretend to be horrified? They have to even pretend for a day or two to care about that, or to imply that maybe an investigation is necessary? No.
No,
they can't put out that signal.
Pro-eugenics party. They're the pro-eugenics party, and that's fine in a modern day 2020 major political party in the richest country on earth.
Yeah. And because if they express empathy, they're based on, what's that?
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just said we're dark today. You and me.
Yeah, well, don't worry. This next story is going to be a light one. No worries. Do we still have that Biden ad? Can we play that from yesterday? Anyway, yeah. Okay. Look, we're going to push through because we do have several more stories to get to. No, there's nothing really light today. Maybe a little bit. Maybe one. Anyway, let's talk about Florida. Apologies to the director if I'm jumping ahead, but Ron DeSantis is pushing a series of laws to effectively criminalize peaceful protests and perhaps legalize murdering protesters. I know that saying that seems crazy, but you got to catch up to Republican politics in 2020. So he tweeted, Today, I announced bold legislation that creates new criminal offenses, always good to create new criminal offenses, and increases penalties for those who target law enforcement and participate in violent or disorderly assemblies. Yes, because if they were peaceful, if they were orderly assemblies, he would be totally willing to like engage with them and possibly change laws as a result. Anyway, forget the rest of his tweet. Let's take a look at the Combating Violence, Disorder, and Looting and Law Enforcement Protection Act, which that's got a nice Orwellian spin to it. So it's a bunch of stuff. All of those components are absolutely horrendous, but we're going to focus on a few. So it would make it a felony to, quote, obstruct traffic during an unpermitted protest. So it's a felony to obstruct traffic. Again, not violent, not rioting, not destroying cars. If you are in the road and it impedes someone for a moment, that could be a felony. Remember, in Florida, felonies can stop you from ever voting again. It also absolves motorists of liability for, quote, injury or death caused if fleeing for safety from a mob. Okay, Emma. I apologize. I'm not in a great mood.
Okay.
We have had months of these protests now. Has there been a single instance in which someone in a car had to flee for their life from a disorderly mob where this would have been justified? Has that happened one time?
Well, there have been cars involved in protests, usually mowing down protesters, because I don't know if you know this, but protests often try to make things a little inconvenient for people. Ron DeSantis, if he were a governor back during the civil rights era, he would think that all of the protesters on the Edmund Pettus Bridge, who I'm sure he now hails as civil rights icons to score political points when he would be on the opposite side of it during that time, all felons. Go to get a felony charge for your disorderly conduct. I mean, that's insane because protests take place in streets. Sometimes they block traffic. I hate to break it to you.
Yeah. Look, I'm inclined, obviously, to agree with you, but it's very clear in the Constitution that you have all of these rights as long as it doesn't inconvenience anyone. If it inconveniences someone, not only is that not constitutionally protected, but you're a felon now. You're going to lose all access to your, any state level benefits. That's a part of this. Also, you won't be able to vote if you inconvenience anyone while exercising your rights.
Right.
That's what they're saying. And again, the reason I pointed out is no one has had to flee for their life. Nobody. It hasn't happened ever at all. Nobody's had to do that. But what has happened is both civilians and cops have run people down with their cars. We already know that this is a tactic that the right likes to use. They apparently picked it up from ISIS. They've used it to kill protesters in the past. And so now it's you're protected from liability for injury or death caused if fleeing for safety from a mob. Okay, so that makes it seem as if your life had to be in danger for you to be protected. But how do stand your ground laws work in Florida? How lenient are they on your ability to determine if your life is being risked? You know exactly how those work in Florida. If you kill someone, you will be protected. It doesn't matter what was happening, how peaceful it was, how many people were there. And that is the sort of thing that I could see sick right-wingers in Florida using. Okay, we already know there's a ton of right-wingers that want to run down protesters. That's the reason that these sorts of laws have been passed in multiple states. So now they know that they'll be protected if they do that. And all they have to do is say, I feared for my life.
Yeah.
That's not the only things. We're going to get to more, but Emma, continue.
No, and your point just about the losing voting rights if you're a felon. Wow. It's really easy now in Florida. They could just disenfranchise whole swaths of people with leftist political leanings if they show up and they are an inconvenience for traffic because they're protesting with Black Lives Matter. There you go. Cementing Republican power in Florida for ages to come.
Yeah. 100%. And so let's get into some of those more penalties. The proposed bill levies mandatory minimum prison sentences for striking law enforcement officers, including with projectiles, and contains an enhancement for throwing objects that strike officers or civilians, and for out-of-state protesters who even participate in a demonstration that turns violent. And again, it's not the protesters that get to evaluate whether it was violent or not. So if you're from out of state and you're in a crowd and someone else does something that they can spin as violent, you can be in legal trouble. And by the way, remember, all of these protests started as a result of people being infuriated by the decades-long police brutality, no justice, all of that. So what is the legislative outcome? Mandatory minimums if you do anything that hurts a cop. Nothing if the cops shoot you in the face with a rubber bullet, put out your eye. Is there anything about this? No, they're not even pretending for it to be balanced. The only result of protests against police brutality are protections for cops who brutalize people. That's what you get. And by the way, this is also these series of protests have given rise to this movement to defund the police. So that's in here too. There are provisions barring state grants to municipalities that defund police and terminate state benefits for anyone convicted of participating in a violent or disorderly assembly. So you can lose all of your state benefits if a protest that you were at is disorderly. And if any locality changes the level of funding to police, they can lose all state grants. So it's not up to remember, like they're supposedly care about states' rights and all that. It's supposed to be about people actually being able to be involved in determining what happens in their area. No, if you ever lower the funding, that's it for your municipality, regardless of whether there's some sort of budget problem. No, everything else is up for grabs. You can lower that funding, but for the cops, it can only ever go up.
Yeah. Luckily, this is so clearly unconstitutional that it will be declared unconstitutional by what Mitt Romney calls our liberal Supreme Court.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and so all these sorts of the Supreme Court is so important and people treat it as if it doesn't matter at all. God damn, what a stupid, stupid, stupid self-destructive political strategy. Anyway. Okay. A couple of comments before we move on. Let's see. The original mess says, Emma's not Anna. Emma is a rainbow. Anna is a lightning bolt. So both good, but different. That's true.
Interesting. Okay, yeah. I'll take that.
Snow White said, is anyone else horrified that science facts have become politicized and are being kept secret from the people? I'm horrified, but not necessarily shocked. They're inconvenient to the politicians. Honestly, it seems like a waste of time, though. Like, why are they hiding this information? Nothing's going to break through to their base anyway. They know that 200,000 people have died. They don't care. They don't care. There are people who have, they have relatives in the hospital now going to Trump rallies without masks. Anyway, Irish Tim Brennan says, I'm so depressed. I'm 61 and never thought that this country would slip into Nazism, and yet here we are on the verge. If you're not freaking out, you're not paying attention. We're trying to get people to pay attention. Agent Smith says, I love democracy. I do too. It's the best. What a great system. And so durable, You don't even need to do anything to protect it. It'll just last.
It's not democracy. It's not democracy. That's
100%.
Yeah.
I agree. LCYW. It's easy to become fixated on the negative. Keep at it, John, Emma, Fran, JR, Anna, Jank, and anybody I missed. We're trying. Some days, though, we have to keep it real. We can't pretend that the news is something that it's not. Over on Twitch, Obi-Mom Kenobi gets a tier 1 sub. Thank you for doing that. Adarisk says Interstellar was awful, 100%. And I knew that a comment from Bart was coming. So Bart says, hey, Emma, if you thought Inception was a mind bender, wait till you see Tenet. See it at a drive over the weekend, and it was great. It has a James Bond Mission Impossible cadence with Nolan's craftsmanship. Okay, that sounds pretty good. The story's a bit confusing, but just go into the movie with this thought. Don't try to understand it. Just feel it, and you'll have a good time. I'm totally with Bart up until that point, but then he says Dunkirk is one of my favorites. Ugh.
I liked Dunkirk because I did but yeah, no, it was more of just like an experience than I would say a film I would ever want to rewatch.
Yeah. I mean, look, to be fair, I watched it on a plane, so
oh my god, you
idiot!
What's wrong with you? There's no way
that on a plane.
Yeah, I
don't think I would have.
Right.
Why did every actor in Dunkirk look identical? Like, I could not tell who I was following. All of them looked like the exact same person is playing different roles.
One of them was Harry Styles. I remember that.
I don't even know. I know that that's a singer. Anyway. And Craig says, I won't stand for this Kubrick slander. 2001 is a masterpiece. Some people, John, just don't like sci-fi. Okay, you want to talk about slander. No, I like sci-fi. I just don't think that putting some random art movie in space, is enough for me to think it's sci-fi. The robot stuff was interesting. The AI, that was interesting. Anyway, Okay, let's move on to something lighter, but with a sort of reverse silver lining. Okay. In not much longer, QAnon is going to be coming to the halls of Congress, but it's not waiting to get in before attacking politicians. Let's see. Marjorie Greene, noted QAnon supporter and congressional candidate that's definitely going to win, tweeted this. As a blonde woman, I would like to take a moment to thank Congresswoman AOC. She has single-handedly put an end to all dumb blonde jokes. Blondes everywhere appreciate your service and your sacrifice. And of course, because there's no standards for wit or humor or anything like that, it's got thousands of retweets already. Nobody knows what she's actually responding to. It seems like just a random tweet attacking AOC.
She got wine. Right, she got wine drunk and just felt jealous of AOC and decided to tweet something out.
I guess that's what it has to be. But again, the right just wants you to like say Ilhan Omar's dumb, and they'll write an article on Breitbart about how you eviscerated her or something like that. So anyway, look, AOC responded saying, "Don't worry, Miss Green. I completely understand why you need to swing and miss on my intellect to make yourself feel better. You seem to have trouble spelling your own insults correctly. Next time, try single-handedly. It'll work better. Good luck writing legislation." And so, look, I don't care too much about the tweet up until that last point. Yes, it has typos, but she's an idiot, and her entire movement's an idiot. They don't care about that. But yeah, she is going to have to write legislation, as AOC has done a number of times. Despite the fact that she was just a bartender, she has shifted, public conversation on any number of issues more than anyone else in the past couple of years. But Marjorie Taylor Greene poses with guns and believes that a satanic cabal of child rapists is controlling every government around the world, and Trump needs to take it down. So doesn't AOC look dumb?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I also love the just a bartender line of attack. What happened? I thought you guys were all about people pulling themselves up by their bootstraps, and now you're going to attack her for having a regular job? Isn't that what you pretend your entire political ideology is all about? People working hard and then achieving what they can achieve? So stupid, and such an obvious way to demean her based on her ethnicity and her gender.
100%. Yeah, no, all of them can't wait to mock the fact that she's not an heiress or something like that. She's not part of a political dynasty. Right. She wasn't chosen by billionaire donors. She actually accomplished something. They can't wait to attack that because, as we point out many times, right-wing populism is a joke, and it actually has no substance. Anyway, yeah, look, I guess in the end, while they're joking back and forth, the joke is on us, because a conspiracy theorist is going to be occupying a seat in Congress. Another Republican, by the way, this isn't a first, who, for instance, if we can bring up this picture, poses with assault rifles and photos of non-white representatives that they would love to gun down, and says that, she needs to take the fight to them and stuff like that. So I guess the joke is on us, because there's no standards whatsoever. I mean, she believes, again, in a satanic cabal of people who drink child hormones and rip their face off before having sex with each other. She actually believes that. And, okay, QAnon's a bit confusing. People don't necessarily understand it. There's hours of video of her in which she's expressed racist, Islamophobic, and anti-Semitic views. She says Muslims don't belong in U.S. government, but she's going to be in U.S. government. And Trump congratulated her, because you're allowed to be openly anti-Semitic and Islamophobic, and that is not an impediment to the entire Republican Party giving you a big warm hug.
They pretend to care about anti-Semitism with Ilhan Omar and say she's an anti-Semite. It's hilarious. It's so depressing and messed up.
I'm sure Barry Weiss is attacking Green on a daily basis, every single day. Yes, I'm sure.
Great point.
Yeah, kind of doubt it. Okay, with that, let's move to one more story with the little time that we have left with Emma. Okay, give me 1 sec. Oh. I've been pacing myself. I have very little left. Okay.
Oh, you could have kept it up before. That's okay. So you remember when the U.S. government sort of briefly kind of did a little something to pretend that they cared about the pandemic, and they like gave regular people, some of them, like $1,000 6 months ago. Well, they also allocated a bunch of money to be handed off to corporations and also to the military. And they were nice enough, were they not merciful, to make at least a little bit of it kind of targeted at doing something about the pandemic rather than just an obvious blatant slush fund for corporations to take to just boost up their profits artificially. Of course, some of it turned out not to be used for the reason it was allocated for. And we have a new report coming out of the Washington Post with a $1 billion fund that Congress gave the Pentagon in March to build up the country's supplies of medical equipment has been mostly funneled to defense contractors and used to make things like jet engine parts, body armor, and dress uniforms. Isn't that fun? Okay, so let's talk about a few of these individual awards. $183 million to firms including Rolls-Royce and ArcelorMittal to maintain the shipbuilding industry. Tens of millions of dollars for satellite, drone, and space surveillance technology. $80 million to a Kansas aircraft parts business suffering from the Boeing 737 MAX grounding and the global slowdown in air traffic. And $2 million for domestic manufacturer of Army dress uniform fabric. Bear in mind, these sorts of, like, just handing money so that they can stay afloat while the lockdown was briefly happening, there's already funds for that. And many of these corporations already have benefited from that. They're just also taking the money that was supposed to go towards producing N95 masks, ventilators, and things like that, and they're just putting it into jet parts, basically. I understand.
They double dipped. They 100%. Took the money from, and they took the PPP loans. And they took this money and they still gave it to defense contractor buddies because Esper, who's the defense secretary, is literally a Raytheon lobbyist who now has that position. So now we're just open about the corruption. It's totally fine. And then they have the gall in the next stimulus bill to ask for $11 billion more. Where do we know that's going to go? Like, you were supposed to be creating masks and securing PPE, and you wanted to dress your soldiers up a little bit nicer and gave it to those industries. It's insane.
Yeah. Well, okay. Insane might be going a bit far. I mean, they do need to buy uniforms, and you have to understand, Emma, that the U.S. military is basically running on fumes in terms of its budget. I mean, its 2019 fiscal budget was only $686 billion. How could they afford uniforms with those nickels and dimes that we're giving them to defend the homeland? And look, this is where it gets even sadder, I guess, because despite the fact that our military budget is still about where it was at any given year during the Cold War or right after 2001, despite the fact that we have no active adversaries, we still need a budget as if we're going to take on the entire rest of the world and the moon. That budget was supported by any number of different Democrats. The funding going to them, the fact that there weren't stronger regulations to make sure that it was actually put into the industry as it's supposed to, a lot of Democrats support that. But Bernie Sanders is the bad guy for trying to cut the budget by just 10%.
Which is 10%. less than what it was when Trump entered office. Like, it would, or I'm sorry, the percentage is less. It would still be more than what it was at the start of 2017. But that they can't even do. Democrats can't even do. The vote was like 23-77 or something like that. Like half of Democrats wouldn't even support that bill.
Exactly. I mean, we're in the middle of a crisis. People are dying. And can we really do anything about it? I don't know, like enhanced unemployment. We don't have the money for it. We need to get new dress doilies for the F-35 or something. They can always find something to put that money into, either the Department of Defense or police departments locally. Those budgets they'll never even stabilize, let alone go down. But the American people, you're sort of on your own. I mean, is it really an economic crisis? Sure, tens of millions are out of work, but the stock market's kind of going back up. It's just the priorities are so clear, and people still just don't really care. And I get part of it is that the Dems aren't really that much better on this. either because they get donations from the same industries or because they still believe after decades that if we just show that we support the military as much as the Republicans, we'll stop losing on that, as if Republican voters would ever switch over just because you give more funding to the Marines. I don't know what the reason is. It's not acceptable. And this, look, it's $1 billion. It's a significant amount of money, but it is just a drop in the bucket of how insane our entire strategy as a country is in terms of how we allocate funding to domestic priorities versus the military. Anyway, Emma, I apologize that there's nothing just light and fun. We can talk about Dark Crystal some more if you want. Anyway,
no, it's all good. I mean, look, I'm feeling the same malaise. Been a rough week this far, but always good to have friends like you, John, and I always have fun doing the show, even if we're depressed the whole time. Yeah. I
agree. Someday we're going to have you on. It's going to be great. We're just going to celebrate. Until that day, where can people see more of your work?
YouTube.com/RebelHQ, Facebook.com/RebelHQ, bang, bang, boom. Do it. Subscribe, nice. Watch my shit. Stuff.
Do that. Watch either of those.
I didn't say it. I didn't say it. I call myself.
It is really okay. Okay. Well, thank you for everything, and we'll talk to you soon.
Later. Bye.
And everybody at home, let's read a few more tweets and all of that. Hold on. First of all, I see instantly. Craig says, so John and Emma think Kenneth Branagh, Tom Hardy, Cillian Murphy, and Mark Rylance all look the same. Who hurt you? No. So first of all, was Tom Hardy in that? I don't know. Kenneth Branagh looks obviously older. It was the young soldiers. It was like 4 different storylines they were bopping around to. And all of the video is so shaky and desaturated. They could not look more the same. And all the storylines were kind of the same. I don't know. That movie, man, that was not great. Like, Inception's interesting, at least. And I get that it's based on a real thing. Like, that's what the story is. Super serious. Great. Important for people to know. But, ugh. CAT sent us in a super chat saying, love you all, so take my money. Thank you. I will. Goes to the channel, but I appreciate that. Thank you. David Park says, UK politicians seem to be taking US inspiration when it comes to outright lies and misdirection. Progressives, please win. It seems to impact us also. I hope so. I hope so. I love you guys, says Johnny in the Vig. So great to see y'all today, holding it down in Austin. Thank you for reporting the news while making me smile too. Thank you. There probably weren't many of them, but we do appreciate that. Sean says, I accidentally got bleach on my new TYT hoodie. Devastated. Luckily got my We Press On t-shirt yesterday. Still sad. That's terrible, but maybe if you were to go overboard and do more bleach, it could be a tie-dye sort of situation. Tie-dye has apparently been very big during the pandemic. But anyway, sorry to hear that. That's really unfortunate. Fox says, I'd rather have a puppet for president than Donald Trump. Yeah, I would take Hupp. I would take Deep. Any one of those Dark Crystal puppets. Gail Hafner says, Mitt doesn't know what women, LGBTQ, immigrants, of people of color go through. 100%. He at least pretends sometimes. Oh, someone points out it's Cillian Murphy. Okay, I guess that's true. I apologize. Ray Riley says, Democrats fall in love, Republicans fall in line. Dem leadership will not get it together and fight. They got to be replaced. Remember how they acted when we even talked about the possibility of someone challenging Nancy Pelosi? How dare you possibly? It's hers. How could it be anyone else? Let's not have a productive conversation about differing strategies, nothing. Strayek says, the establishment Dems need to be replaced. Their stance right now is to play nice with Republicans, but we need them to fight with knives out. Primary every single one of them. I mean, obviously, Pelosi is being primaried. Shahid Buttar has been on the show a couple of times. Best of luck. I Hate Life More says, did Nancy Pelosi offer thoughts and prayers for an election she's supposed to be fighting? Kinda, yeah. Sue M says, I'm old, retired. IMHO, there are too many old people in Congress past their shelf life. Look, there's nothing inherently wrong with being older. Ed Markey ain't 20. But there are people who can continue to learn and develop and be responsive to the electorate, and those who cannot. Tim McCaffrey says, na leader, Batman leader. Thank you for the super chat. I don't understand the reference. Other than to Batman. The thing on the left says, we need to primary all these senators, especially Feinstein. We need to find some strong progressives to primary both seats and the governorship in Cali. 100%. I mean, look, with Feinstein, it was tried last time, and unfortunately, she was able to survive. Ann Summer says, I want to hear Emma's comments about NFL Week 2 and her thoughts about MLB playoffs. Emma, you are a national treasure. She is. Apologies. You're going to have to wait for Rebel HQ to hear those. Elias and Scott, thank you for your super chats. Justin says, I have a fever. The cure, more Vig. 100%. Hope that makes you feel better. Scott Hodgins says, Saskatchewan has drive-through testing. 1.5-hour wait, 15-minute test, open from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. Tuesday to Sunday. 3 days to get results. Total cost to me, $0. That sounds good. Hope Platt says, John, I'm very sorry for your loss. Thank you for what you do here. Keep up the great work. Thank you, Hope. I appreciate that. Bin says, Biden'd again. Quote, I beat the socialists. That's how I got elected. That's how I got the nomination. Do I look like a socialist? Look at my career, my whole career. I am not a socialist. Yeah, I saw that quote. He won. He's going to say that, and he gets to say that. Sucks for us. We got to win. Again, winning is winning. Nothing else is winning. Don't listen to anyone who tries to convince you that you get to win without winning. You have to. It's annoying. I don't like it. What are you going to do? Hopefully win next time. That's what you're going to do. Well, Max says, keep fighting the good fight, John. Much love from the UK, where we've got our own asterisks of government. 100% UK needs some help, too. Misty Bauer says, please say hi to my friend Christy. First-time Dragon Squad attender and Trump prisoner for life. Sounds good come 2021. Time to fight. RIP RBG. Christy, welcome to Dragon Squad. Good to have you here, and thank you, Misty, for that super chat. Jess says, you're so down and bitter, but we get it. Big hug to you, buddy. Thanks for all you do. Thank you. And most days are not like this. You know, despite everything, I try to keep it together, but it's tough. It's tough. Matt Anonymous says, does that mean people in Florida won't be able to block people from entering abortion clinics and Planned Parenthood? Matt, that's a very good point, and you know damn well it won't. Sarah says, in Johnson City, Tennessee, we had 2 BLM protesters hit an illegal crosswalk with no consequences thanks to the protest protection laws. That's what they're there for. You're allowed to do whatever you want. I see in the comments, Javier says, Dark Crystal is the Bowie movie, right? That was a hella good one. Labyrinth is good too, but it's not Dark Crystal. Mark Davis says, Navy vet here. Members have to purchase their own uniforms. They aren't cheap. What do the makers need that money for? God only knows. Do you really have to buy all of them? Jesus. Okay, over on Twitch, Kelly June says, what she, this is Marjorie Green says, was badly trying to say was that AOC is dumb. And she has brown hair, therefore it should be brunettes are dumb. But we know that it's not true because we know so many intelligent brunettes, Emma, Anna, Franny, and all the excellent guest hosts on TDR over the years. 100%. She doesn't even know what she's trying to say. But that's the thing. Like, there is a thing, I guess it exists on the left too, for some, but certainly on the right. There's so many people that it doesn't matter what you tweet, man. Charlie Kirk can just put random letters and then the thinking hard face and it'll get 20,000 retweets because there's no standards whatsoever and there are massive bot networks designed to protect them and to boost their messages. You can say whatever you want. And think about that. Think about the corrosive effect on someone's intelligence that being able to get away with saying anything you want would have. Why would you be clever? What's the point? It's a waste of cognitive effort. Just don't do it. Just say stupid stuff. That's what they do. Anyway, Biggest Justin on Twitch says, I feel you guys' mood so much right now. Hang in there, both of you. We need you. Thank you. And we're here. We're not going anywhere. As much as I would love to devote myself 100% to writing fantasy stories set in a world of no humans, just animals, magic, mystery, and adventure, it's not there yet. You know, someday maybe no more politics, just animal, sword, and sorcery. But for right now, both. Kelly June says, we're with you, John. We care. That's why we're here, because even if we are silly sometimes down deep, we feel it, and we are with you and the whole TYT and TDR family. We care. We are angry with you. Thank you, Kelly June. I appreciate that. Why am I sticky? It says, we need to start a union and demand at least 1 pet viewing per stream. Good luck. Dmesh over on Twitter says, does John watch Sword Art Online? No, sorry. I don't. I probably shouldn't. I've heard good things. And Maytel sent me in a tweet with a picture of Snickers, who took a nap during the show. Snickers looks adorable, 100%. And there are a lot of cute dogs in the Twitter today. So, look, thank you, everybody. Please tune in later to our Get Out the Vote special. That's going to be happening later on today, 7:30 p.m. Pacific time, 4:30 p.m. Eastern time. I'm going to be joined by Cenk Uygur, Ida Rodriguez, and Benjamin Dixon as well. We're going to be breaking down myths about voting, what your rights are as a voter, what you need to do to make sure that you vote, and we're going to hopefully inspire you to do so. So watch on tyt.com/live, YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, Roku, Zumo, Pluto, Samsung TV Plus, Comcast, Infinity X1 and Flex, YouTube TV, all of those. So definitely do that. JR joins me on the show tomorrow if I don't see you on the special. But until then, stay safe out there. Stay sane out there. I'll see you soon.